I didn't know this before I was reading this. You were not raised in the Islamic religion. You converted
Yes.
as a young man. I didn't even know you went to prison. No, I'm joking about that. But
College, Bill, college.
I know, but I mean, as someone who was also raised Catholic and
Yep.
Have gotten rid of that, why did you switch? Why did you switch brands?
Yeah. You know what? I can't claim that I was ever the most devout practicing Catholic. I was raised in a Catholic household, went to Catholic school, went to all boys Catholic high school, Detroit, UAD High School, go Cubs. But you know, I just was looking for. I was interested in social justice, social change when I got on campus, and I found people who were working on those things, like the anti-apartheid struggle and things like that. Happened to also, some of them were Muslim, and you know, I went to the mosque one day. I liked what I heard about a message of inclusion, social justice, all races, all colors in the room, and I started investigating, and I've been a Muslim since I was 19, so it works for me. I do believe that religious pluralism is a key component of the human experience, at least it should be, and that we need to have respect for the people who are believers and non-believers. I'm proud to represent a group of people in my district who are non-theists, and whenever we have interfaith roundtables, we invite them too, because we think they have important things to contribute to the dialogue.
Right on. So let me get to the part where I think you may not agree with me, which is I do agree that there are other groups that pose a terrorist threat to this country. There are right-wing militias who are nutty, and the Ku Klux Klan, and abortion bombers, and Timmy McVeigh types. I would say that the threat potentially from radicalized Muslims is a unique and greater threat. It is the greatest threat. Let me give you the reasons why I jotted down why. One, it's been going on 1,000 years, this problem between Islam and the West. We are dealing with a culture that is in its medieval era. It comes from a hate-filled holy book, the Quran, which is taken very literally by its people. They are trying to get nuclear weapons. I don't think Tim McVeigh would ever have tried to get a nuclear weapon, because I think right-wing nuts, they think they love this country, and they are not trying to destroy this country. They want to get it away from the people they see as hijacking it. That's different than Muslim extremists who want to destroy it. And also, it's a culture of suicide bombing, which is hard to deter from people who want to kill themselves.
Well, I tell you, Bill, I think that you should investigate this issue a little more, because I think that you're lumping together things that shouldn't be lumped together, and you're casting a very wide net, and therefore coming to the wrong conclusions. First of all, when you talk about they're trying to get nuclear weapons, are you referring to Iran? Who are you talking about? Al-Qaeda?
I think anyone who is influenced by Al-Qaeda and the statements of Osama bin Laden, and that's...
Yeah, but Muslims aren't. I mean, there's 1.4 billion Muslims in the world.
Of course, no one is disputing that the vast, giant majority of Muslims are not the problem. We're talking about a very small percentage, but it just takes one. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about terrorism. And obviously, there is something that is going on that they're getting from the Quran. Have you read Sam Harris's book, The End of Faith?
They're not getting it from the Quran. You know, Bill, I'm glad. Let's use this point for a moment, because as you know, as a student of religion, you know, their books are complex. They're compiled, and taking them out of context is a very easy thing to do.
I've heard this many times, and I don't buy it. I'm sorry.
Well,
Sam Harris says, on almost every page, the Quran instructs observant Muslims to despise non-believers.
That's absurd, ridiculous,
and he quotes it. Am I getting the wrong translation? Because that's what every Muslim always tells me.
No, really? You must be. I would recommend...
A lot of bad translations then.
Well, why don't you read the part where it says that anyone who takes a life is as if he killed the whole world, and anyone who saves a life is as if he saved the whole world. What about the one where it says that there be no compulsion in religion, and that it's literally wrong?
Well, then where are the terrorists getting their instructions from? They're getting it from something else.
Like any ideologue, they will take things out of context to do what they want to do. If you listen to terrorist rhetoric, Bill, what they do is they cite politics. They cite political grievances. They don't really use too much religion. As a matter of fact, when you find Muslims who reject terrorism, as I do and almost everyone does, it often is for spiritual and religious reasons and moral reasons. But when people want to justify it, they justify it on political reasons. This is well documented. Check out the Gallup poll. Check out people who've studied this stuff. One of the things that I think we can do to undermine terrorist ideology is actually to use people who know the Quran and to go after people like Anwar al-Awlaki who misquote it, misuse it, and don't really understand it. So
I hope that happens. All right. Thank you for joining us, Congressman. I appreciate your time. Before I bring out our next guest, I want to tell you a little story. This is a story that I saw in the paper this week that was not really well reported in the media. I thought it was fascinating. There is a man in Orchard Park. It's a suburb of Buffalo. His name is Muzammil Hassan, and he cut his wife's head off with a giant sword. Oh, you saw this story?
Oh, I heard about it.
Yeah, a giant scimitar.
Yeah.
And, you know, this guy was a Pakistani-American living in Orchard Park for 25 years, started a TV station. He ran a TV station specifically to highlight how Muslims are being misconstrued in the public eye.
Yeah.
And then he cut his wife's head off with a giant sword. So I wanted this lady to come on to comment on this. I've read about her many times. She is the founder of Acts for America and author of They Must Be Stopped, Why We Must Defeat Radical Islam and How We Can Do It. Please welcome Brigitte Gabriel.
Thank you.
Brigitte, how you doing?
Doing great, Bill. Glad to be with you.
Now, this scares people because they think, oh, here's a guy living in America for 25 years. He's assimilated. We can trust him. And then he takes the giant sword off the wall and cuts his wife's head off.
That's right.
Right, yeah. Well, that's...
And then he is touted as the exemplary moderate Muslim who actually started Bridges TV, which is an Islamic television to clean up the image of Islam. And what does he do? He beheads his wife, calls the police bragging about how he cut her head off, and then the police shows up and there's the lady laying on the floor in the TV station, which they found it together, and her head is next to her body. And this guy did it in the name of honor. This is what we call a moderate Muslim businessman in the United States. It's frightening.
Well, say what you really think, but...
you can't even make this stuff up.
I know. He was a... this is... But let me ask you the other question that needs to be asked, which is, come on, there are red-blooded white Americans who strangle their wives, and O.J. killed his wife, you know, with a knife. It wasn't a giant sword, but, you know, I mean... what about the argument that this is just bigotry toward the Muslims to extrapolate all this from this incident?
No, it's very different, and I have to make it very clear that I do come from the Middle East. I'm an Arabic woman from Lebanon, and this is strictly an Islamic practice, and here's the difference. When Westerners in the West kill their wife, they usually kill their wife and run away. They try to hide the problem. They try to lie. They try to hide the evidence. They do not call the police and brag about how they killed her. You know, there's a major difference there.
But that doesn't make that big a difference to the wife. Do you think he had that scimitar up on the wall just as a conversation piece? And he was like, I keep it up there to remind me how far we've come. And then one day the wifey just went too far and he went, bitch, you are... and just cut their head off.
That's right.
I know. I remember, you know.
I mean, listen, this is a premeditated, calculated murder. She has reported many times domestic abuse. And remember, this is his third wife. And the other two left him because of the domestic abuse. He was beating them. And this lady wanted to leave him because she was fearing for her life. And finally, he killed her.
Okay.
And it's a tragedy. And I thank you for bringing it to light because no one in the mainstream media is covering the story.
No, I know. And it's a shame. You started TV station to highlight how modern the Muslims are, and then you make one mistake. And it's all... But let me ask you, what did you think of Obama making his doing his first interview with a Muslim station and reaching out to the Muslim world like that? Wasn't that a good thing?
I have to disagree with you on that. I think it's a wonderful idea that he is trying to reach out to the Muslim world, and we need to do that. Diplomacy is important. But I think he could have done it a little bit differently. He did go on Al Arabiya, but I do not believe he should have kind of apologized to the Arabic world for America's ills for the last, 30 years. I think President Obama needed to realize that it was actually in 1979, it was Iran that called America the Great Satan.
Wait a second. Wait
yes.
a second. He did not apologize. In fact,
No,
in his inauguration speech, he said, we don't apologize for our way of life.
Yes, but he alluded in his interview to Al Arabiya that America did mistakes and we are going to try to clean up our image in the Arabic world. America went to 4 wars defending Muslims in Muslim countries. We went into Kuwait to liberate a Muslim nation from Saddam Hussein, who attacked them in the 1990. We went into Bosnia fighting the Christians to liberate the Muslims. So, you know, we tried to do a lot to help the Islamic world. It was America that immediately after the earthquake in Iran 2 years ago, it was the first country in the world, America, who volunteered to give aid. So,
but come on, we also put the Shah on the throne. We also supported a lot of Arab dictators. We killed an awful lot of people in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, it's one thing to win hearts and minds, but you have to remember it's more important to keep them in bodies.
That's right, but
we haven't done that too well lately.
That's right, but this is very recent. Remember, Iraq and Afghanistan are only in the last decade, you know, since 2001. Remember that in the 90s, Al-Qaeda trained 10,000 the Taliban trained 10,000 Al-Qaeda members in Afghanistan. That was when President Clinton was in power. George Bush Jr. wasn't even a blurb on the American political landscape. So it was the Muslim world back in 1979 that declared war on America before we ever did anything to fight the Muslims in the Arabic world.
Well, they would say we did things before that, like put the Shah in power. But you have to come back and we'll argue about it some more. Thank you very much, Bridget, Gabrielle,
and you know, I went to the mosque one day. I liked what I heard about a message of inclusion, social justice, all races, all colors in the room. And I started investigating, and I've been a Muslim since I was 19, so it works for me. I do believe that religious pluralism is a key.
And have gotten rid of that. Why did you switch brands?
Yeah. You know what? I can't claim that I was ever the most devout practicing Catholic. I was raised in a Catholic household. Went to a Catholic school, went to all-boys Catholic high school in Detroit, UAD, component of the human experience, at least it should be, and that we need to have respect for the people who are believers and non-believers. I have proud to represent a group of people in my district who are non-theists, and whenever we have interfaith roundtables, we invite them too, because we think they have important things to contribute to the dialogue. High school, go Cubs. But, you know, I just was looking for I was interested in social justice, social change when I got on campus, and I found people who were working on those things, like the anti-apartheid struggle and things like that. Happened to also, some of them were Muslim.
I didn't know this before I was reading this. You were not raised in the Islamic religion. You converted as a young man. I didn't even know you went to prison. No, I'm joking about that. But...
College, Bill, college.
I know, college. But I mean, as someone who was also raised Catholic and